the Japanese couldn't get more than 300 kilometers through the borders. Like, and what are they
It's
doing? There's nothing
and
around.
it's not. Yeah, you need a strategic objective. I'm the only way I would just see this helping is if it would be able to divert away soldiers from the Western Front of the the
The Eastern
Operation
Front for the,
Barbarossa.
yeah.
Yeah, Western Front for the Soviets, right?
Yeah, yeah. But the
But
thing is,
the
I
only they could have that was the only way I thought they could even support.
the thing is, I actually looked into scholar work on it, and I was surprised to find this out because the classic story is okay because the Japanese never opened up a front. The quote unquote Siberian Corps came over and saves the day right at Moscow. The thing is, if you break it down, you look at the timeline, they only come in after the battle for Moscow has been won.
I think
They're
they
there for
come
the
in
counter
around the
push.
time for the Zhukov's Stalingrad counteroffensive. I think that's when
Yeah,
they
yeah.
turn
I'm
up.
just thinking of the Moscow one because it was the most pressing threat. Of course, Stalingrad starting up. But what was the name of the operation when they throw back the counterattack in Moscow? The counteroffensive. That's when the
Mhm.
Siberian Corps shows up and they're fresh and blah, blah, blah. They don't eat, they're not, it's not a significant portion of what was in the East either. The Soviets kept like, I think more than 50% of the troops in the Far East because they still feared the Japanese would do something. But yes, they took some of these good units and they brought them over. But even if they don't come over, it doesn't change anything. It's just the counteroffensive isn't as grand. It's still going to
Or
happen.
no, or at the most, it just means that the Soviet armies are gonna be more defensive.
Yeah, and that would be fine. This wasn't the knockout blow. This wasn't going to make Operation Typhoon successful. For the Germans, there's really not much Japanese could do to really help the Germans, except for one thing that I thought of not too long ago. You maintain your borders, you breach the Neutrality Act, and then you send an ultimatum. You're like, I want Vladivostok, or I'll attack Vladivostok, and that's it. And the Japanese would probably use chemical warfare because they're communists.
You already, anyways, have the units
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And the Japanese, there's no way the Russians could protect Vladivostok. They're going to take that, and that's the most significant target that they could take because there's nothing else.
Is
There's
there?
nothing they can
Yeah,
exploit.
even I'm just also thinking geographically. Is there anything else?
There's
No, I can't even
technically
think of.
oil that hasn't been found in Siberia, and the Japanese, who have no knowledge of how to exploit oil, would have no ability, even if they magically found it. No, there's nothing they could do. There's not even trees in Siberia for them to burn. So it would have been terrible. And again, people always think, oh, but if the Japanese come through this way, there's going to be a pincer and then they'll defeat the Soviet Union together. The
It's
distance to
huge.
freaking Midway is less than the distance from freaking Tokyo to Moscow. And you're talking about a country with no freaking oil. How are they going to go 2,000 kilometers through a wasteland that's, no, that's not happening.
I mean, Russia, I think east to west is like 9,000 kilometers.
It's crazy. And we're
Yeah,
talking
like
about
what army
non-mechanized
is going
Japan
to move
here.
that much?
Yeah, the Japanese on basically relying on horses, especially in Manchukuo. They have the Mongol cavalry allies and all that. It's like they're not. It's not happening. And basically the Russian defense, the entire defensive operation was a defense in depth. So if the Japanese, broke the front line, the Russians are just pulling back. There's another line, pulling back. There's another line, and there's like another 50 kilometers. They're just further and further lines. It's so stupid. There's a good reason the Japanese never pursued that. Yeah.
Well, and not to mention with Stalin leading them, Russians are not afraid of just throwing their men and getting an entire battalion wiped out to the man.
And they have experience against the Japanese in 38 and 39. They know exactly the capabilities the Japanese
And
have.
I'm
They
pretty sure
know
the Kuomintang army was scared to attack.
they had developed better anti-tank guns, but compared to every other nation, they were still shit. And they were not going to be able to
And
remotely
and
do
this is
anything.
this is before the T-34s even came into widespread service.
Oh yeah, they were fighting T-26s. I'm not good with tanks. I don't know my tanks very well,
But
but
yeah,
it's
but the T-34 only started coming out in
BV1s, the B1s, and the
yeah,
T-26s or something were in the
yeah.
38-39 conflict. So yeah,
34 only came out into production, I think, in start of Barbarossa. That's when they first started coming into combat.
I mean, it's the KV-1s and it's the 30 T-34s that the Germans like had the most, problems with. Everything else is kind of small scale. But yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. The Japanese are as terrible making their tanks as they are facing them. They just because their enemy was China. China didn't have anything except for a few Renaults and a few old German tanks. Like it didn't matter.
They have manpower.
And honestly, the Japanese, what they had that they're kind of the best weapon they had was chemical and bacterial warfare weapons that all their units carried, but they only used on basically the Chinese, and sometimes I think they used them on the borders of Manchuria against the Russians. But they would never use them against the Americans, fearing the Americans would have better chemical weapons to use against them, which the Americans did. I don't know if you ever heard this, but if you read like reports in the U.S. military, they had chemical warfare units attached in the
I think
Pacific
the
War.
Kenji, yeah, I think Kenji in the Pacific War week by week, some episodes,
I'm the one who wrote that
literally,
note. Yeah.
yeah, I think you literally like chemical mortar battalion, mortar platoon or something like that. I don't recall the exact wording, but I remember that being mentioned.
Yeah. Because when you're reading the order of battle for like some nonsensical, like let's say it's something on, I don't know, Battle Peleliu or something like that, you would just read that there's like chemical mortar battalion number, whatever, whatever. And you're like, oh, what's that? And yeah, the Japanese and the Americans had the exact same policy. They had these units who were holding illegal weapons in case the other side used first. They would, it's like kind of like World War One a little bit. They would use in retaliation. So the
But
Japanese were petrified because they had some of the best weapons around, but they assumed the Americans had much better than them. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I still always get staggered by the number of forces China committed to the war as well. It's
yeah. Here,
quite
let me find that
underappreciated aspect.
casualties per
I remember
nation.
I remember seeing this right from the KNG Pacific War, like this area, first war area. All right, he literally has 50 divisions under his command.
I mean, but it's also nonsensical because
I know.
China didn't have a standardization. They had a lot of issues because they had different versions of armies. Like, I think I had to explain this to you. Like they have the route army system. They were basing they had two structures. They had the Soviet way of doing military stuff, and then they had the German way. That's how they were like operating at the NRA at the beginning. And then when they realigned themselves with the CCP went full USSR, so they had the route army system. But Chiang Kai-shek was also managing provincial armies on top of his nationalist army, and then there was warlord regional army groups. So it's such a hodgepodge of different armies. So what was a corps? How much was in a corps is like different for whatever army it is. It's all over the place. But yeah, if you
Yeah,
look at the chart,
Russia.
China, shit, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, almost 20 million deaths.
And
Does it include the
civilian,
Civil War numbers as well, or it's just
let me
what
look
we
at the
might just
chart.
do our best case attribution to?
I don't think it includes the Civil War. Oh, this is total deaths as of 1939 population. And if you look over here, you can see that the Chinese and the Soviets, but man, they lose a lot of civilians. It's pretty insane. Wow.